This is Ray Varner, class of 2010, with the Oral History Living Legacies program, in particular the Women of Randolph-Macon Oral History program. And with me today is Cristin Trailer, 97. She was known as Cristin Bauby at her time at Randolph-Macon. And also here is Kim Dutton from the library, class of 2011, and Sarah Hendricks from the development office. So, hello, Cristin.
Hello.
So my first question is an easy one. Just where did you grow up, and maybe where you went to high school?
Sure. I grew up in Prospect, Connecticut, and I went to Holy Cross High School in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Okay, so in Connecticut. So how did you hear about Randolph?
I wanted to go south, and my parents said Virginia was as far south as I could go. So that kind of narrowed it down, and I knew I sort of wanted a small college, small town. I just wanted that sort of small college feel. And so when I started, doing searches back then with your guidance counselor, Randolph-Macon came up, and I came and visited and just loved it.
So you didn't know anyone who were alumni or anything?
Didn't know anyone, no.
Wow. So can you say more about that trip to campus that you made?
Sure. I made a couple of them, but I think the first one where I came down when we were doing a circuit with my mom and I came down, and we looked in Lynchburg at Lynchburg College and Liberty, and we looked here, and just sort of when I walked on the campus and saw the fountain, I mean, it just seemed like that sort of that feel of what I was looking for, having sort of no idea, about colleges, when you're in high school. But I knew I wanted sort of a small college feel, and the campus was beautiful, and everybody seemed happy and cheery, friendly.
Do you remember talking to anyone in particular, or missions or anything like that?
I really don't that first time. I know we did admissions. I know we did the tour. But so long ago, I guess I don't really remember that much. And then I did a couple of or at least I did one of the accepted students weekend. It was with the honors program where I came down, I think it was on a Sunday night, and stayed with somebody. And, that I think really cemented it. Just being with other students and having them take me to their classes and that sort of thing, and hanging out in the dorms. And I just was like, oh, this is great.
Do you remember who the student was that took you around?
Tex. She went by Tex. And Jennifer Gamble. So, yes, I do remember who they were.
So, since you're coming from Connecticut, and then, so what were your thoughts of, just Virginia and the college, and kind of as an outsider perspective? So what were your thoughts?
Just thought everybody was so friendly compared to, I don't want to say people in Connecticut are not friendly, but sometimes I just really felt a difference. Like even, we go to the grocery store here and people would, be friendly and say hello and talk to you, and it just seemed, friendly, that's all I can really say. And more laid back, definitely more laid back, not as high tense. Everything is up there.
Did you know that the college had gone co-ed? What was it? 25? How many years before? 25
It was
years?
25 we had the 25th anniversary while I was in school.
So I guess, but you probably didn't know that coming to...
I think I didn't really know it, but when we started, talking to people about what colleges we were going to, that's when somebody talked about the Randolph-Macon Women's College, and then sort of realized that there were two different colleges, and one had been all male at some point. So I think I had a vague understanding of that after, I got down here and was looking at different colleges.
Mm-hmm. So, do you remember when you came to campus as a freshman? So, do you remember moving in? And
yes.
So, can you tell us about that whole experience?
I remember, pulling up in the circle. I lived in Moreland on the first floor, actually right when you walk in to the right, so I didn't have to go that far. Remember sort of unpacking and, bringing everything in. It wasn't, at the time, I had really bad allergies, and so I really needed to be in air conditioning. I have trouble breathing if I'm not in air, and of course now nobody knows what I'm talking about, but, the motels were all not air conditioned at the time.
Even in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, no, there was no air conditioning at all. And so in order to get into Moreland or Conrad, you had to have a doctor's note that you needed to be in air conditioning. So they had put me in, one of the motels, and then I got switched, but before I moved here. And so, but it was like a mixed hall then, because my roommate was also a freshman, and there were a couple other freshmen on the hall, but it was mostly sophomores and juniors on the hall at the time. But
and then there were all freshman dorms like there are now?
The motel, I know it's a new... Freshman's Village, whatever it's called now. But yeah, I'm probably like, what you told me, those people just say the same thing. I'm going to probably just say the motels forever. Yeah. Those were mostly freshman dorms. So the whole halls down there were freshmen.
And was it co-ed in Moreland
yes.
on the first floor? Yeah,
the first floor was co-ed. I think the second floor, or the third, one of them was maybe all male and one of them was all female, but the first floor was co-ed.
And when you say co-ed, what does that mean?
There were, by the suites, so
mm-hmm.
I shared a suite with other women, and then maybe the next pair of suites were men. So it was sort of dispersed up and down the hall.
Do you remember having an orientation or
yes.
participating in orientation? Or?
Yes. I remember there was orientation. I remember there was a trip to King's Dominion that I didn't go on for some reason.
The
and I still have not been to King's Dominion, even though I've been here this long. Other than that, I don't remember much about orientation. I remember, sitting outside in the circle there, and people called names and you did weird things. But other than that, it's all sort of a blur.
Do you remember what the food was like when you were on campus? So where the cafeteria was and all that?
The food was awful. I don't know. I hear maybe it's improved. Maybe not. I don't know. It wasn't really great. And I think, was it my first year or my second year? I ended up also, I think it was my first year. I was not on the meal plan, or maybe I was on the first year and not the second year. So that because I would end up like going and not really like liking anything, and then end up going out and getting, pizza or Taco Bell or something ridiculous. And so it turned out to be not very cost effective. So I think at least, I can't remember which year that was,
but all of the restaurants and everything that are in Ashland, I guess, were there when you were here, or?
Some of them. There's obviously a lot more now, like that LS Teca wasn't there, and the Starbucks obviously was not there. There was all the little fast food places were still there.
So they were here.
And Andy's and Anthony's and all that stuff.
But you had plenty of choices. If you weren't going to the dining hall, you could go other places.
Right.
Yeah. And I assume that you ate in Estes.
Yes.
Right? Okay, that must have... And there was another option, I guess, was making coffee here, or was that, so that wasn't here in the...
It was like a little, like you could go in there, I can't remember what it was called, but you could go in there and get like a burger or fries or something like that, but it wasn't on the meal plan, like you had to pay for it separately. And it was mostly like late night or something where people would go there. It wasn't really someplace you'd go just to get food. So really the options were pretty limited. It was Estes or Estes.
Yeah. It's funny that you say the options were limited, when the other women, they had the dining hall that was only open, 11 to 12 or something, and then so
okay.
It's funny hearing
but I'm saying that's limited.
on Route 1, on 54 where there yet. So
oh right, they had no other options.
Yeah. There was a truck stop. They could eat at the truck stop.
Yeah.
So.
We went to the truck stop many times at like 2 a.m. or something. Truck stop, there was another place that's not there anymore. The omelet shop or something it was called. That would be like the place where we'd go at like 2 a.m. They had really good home fries, which were yummy. But anyway, hash browns.
Do you remember any of the characters that might have been in the cafeteria or any of those?
I remember Pearl, and besides Pearl, like she was the one that really stood out. And then, of course, Champ was always around, who I understand is still around here somewhere. So, but I'd say those are the characters that I remember.
Can you describe Champ a little? He is still around.
I know. if he liked you, he was like your best friend, and because he used to work at the I don't know if he still does, at that what is now Making Coffee, the place where you could go. So he used to work there, and if he liked you, he'd hook you up with whatever. And but if he didn't like you, like, watch out. Like, he was, he was like really mean if he didn't like you. And it was easy to get on his bad side, so you had to kind of be nice to him.
It's funny because Champ has come up, a couple of times.
He's been around forever and ever and ever.
When I first started working here, and someone said, "Hey, Champ," I thought, that is so rude. You're calling, it's like saying,
right,
"Hey, buddy," or, "Hey, Chief."
No, that's what he went by.
It's his last name, I think.
Oh, is it? I don't even know. He just went by. We just knew him as Champ. So,
yeah. Can you say more about? Can you just tell us about your social life? So what you did while you were on campus, so either activities or
I think when I got here, I think I was like, oh, I need to join all these things, and I probably joined like a million clubs and things just to meet people, and then my sophomore year I joined a sorority. So then I'd say for like the other 3 years, spent a lot of time with the people in my sorority.
Which sorority were you? Alpha
Gamma Delta. And I'm still involved now. I'm an advisor, so I come back here a lot and help out with things. What else do you want to know?
So, tell us about, your sorority experience. So,
it was one of the best experiences that I've had here. I'm still close to, maybe not all the sisters, but a lot of people that I was here with. A couple of women were in my wedding. You kind of build. I think that was like the most bond forming experience with people, because we did so much together, and I think it's probably less now. It doesn't seem like the Greek life is as important now. At least there's not as many. Like before, it was like, I don't know, maybe like 60-70% Greek, and I think it's gone down to like 20% or something now.
Not that low, but
it's pretty low. I just know it's lower than it was. It was pretty much most people were Greek at the time, and now it seems like it's a little bit different. But I don't know where I was going.
So, how would you describe, life on campus with, everyone being, the differences? What would you think would be the differences having, a Greek campus that you experienced? So what was it like?
Well, even though most people were Greek, it didn't matter. I know there's all these rules now or I guess the rules were there, but we didn't follow them at the time. But it didn't matter, which sorority or which fraternity you're in. You could go, like, every weekend, 2 or 3 or 4 houses would have parties. And they would have, like, a band, and it would, it would be a big party. And you could go to really any house. It wasn't like, I know now you have to have there's the guest list. Technically, I think they had like a fake guest list. But now they don't, you really have to have a guest list, and they check you in and stuff. But you could just walk into any house. So it made it so much more like open, and there was less, I don't want to say like nitpicking between everybody, but less sort of, it didn't matter if you were an SAE or Theta Chi or Lambda or whatever, you could still go to anybody's party. And I think that sort of made the campus a little bit more, I don't want to say friendly, but again, I'm going back to my friendly thing. People got along more. It just wasn't a us versus them, because it was everybody's included. And even if you're non-Greek, you could still go to the parties, and it was just everybody was welcome, and it wasn't like you had to know somebody there in order to get an invite into the door, which I thought was really nice.
Did you guys have like individual mixers, like one sorority and one fraternity, that kind of thing?
We did. That was back when you could actually do them at the fraternity houses, and now you can't do that. You have to get like a third-party vendor to do it, or unless you have non-alcoholic, and then I guess you can do it still. But yeah, there was some of that, mixers and stuff, and with funny names, and I can't remember what they were, but yeah. I think Theta Chi had the awful like hose and something else. It was just awful.
So would you say that most of your friends were in the sorority with you, or is that where
I would say yeah, although I still had friends who were either in other sororities or not in sororities. I mean, it just, especially, coming in as a freshman where at the time, it was spring rush. So, you met a lot of people, you knew a lot of people before anybody was in sororities.
So, who were your closest friends? And
My friend Kate Walter, who's now Kate Nassauer, and Mandy Pollock, and I kind of went in, I don't want to say waves, but like there were people at different times where I hung out with more, but it didn't mean the other people were not my friends. But
so were they in the sorority with you, or?
They were, yes. And then my friend Danielle Foote, who left after sophomore year, who I'm still really good friends with to this day. So
Where did she go?
She left to go to aeronautics school. She really wanted to be a pilot at the time, although now she's doing airport management, which obviously we didn't offer any sort of airport, sort of aeronautics here at Randolph-Macon. So she did leave after sophomore year, but and she was a Delta Zeta, and we were just like the best of friends. So still are.
So, do you remember who your roommates were?
Mm-hmm. My freshman year, her name was Colby Kimmons, and my sophomore year I was an RA. My junior year, Mandy, who I already spoke about, we lived in the sorority house together. And then my senior year, I was the president of the sorority, so I got a single. So I really only had roommates 2 out of the 4 years.
So, what was your freshman roommate like? Did you get along, or?
We started out getting along, then we kind of had a rift where we weren't really getting along. But we're I'd say more like acquaintances now. We're Facebook friends or whatever. If I see her, we'll chat, but we're not like friends at the moment.
So, but you stuck it out though, and you stayed together the whole year.
We did, yeah.
That's good.
I think it's really hard, especially if you grew up never sharing a room with anyone like I did. I think it's really hard to all of a sudden be in a room about the size of this, a really tiny room with another person that you don't really know. But I guess everybody does that all the time. It's just, I think maybe if I grew up with a brother or sister who I shared a room with, maybe it wouldn't have been as big a deal. I was just very used to my privacy and being able to do what I wanted when I wanted, and having nobody interrupt my sleep or that sort of thing.
So what was it like being an RA?
It was a good experience. What's it like?
You were a freshman?
Yeah.
You were on a freshman ball?
I was actually on the 3rd floor of Moreland, so I had all women, but they were upper class women.
So they were older people you had to...
Yeah, so that was a little bit more difficult. And I like to go out and party like everybody else, and so it was sort of like, well, go do what you want to do off the hall, just don't do it on the hall to everybody, kind of thing. But I like doing sort of like having the programs and things. Like I had to plan, I don't know if they still do that now, but I was in charge of planning so many different programs for people and doing that sort of thing.
Well, what do you mean programs?
Like you had to have programs. Like you had to have like speakers, or you had to have like activity. I mean, you had to like plan things for the people on your hall.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't like being you had to be on duty like once a month, where you had to like walk around and patrol the halls. I didn't really like that. I don't think anybody really liked that. But I like being there to, if people had like questions or issues, I kind of like that part of it, to help, more of the helping people as opposed to busting them for something.
Did you ever bust someone?
That was like us. Yeah, like the girls next to me, like one night had like a huge party and I was in, and it was, yeah. But other than that, I don't really remember anything else.
But the girls would come to you if they needed something, or if they had a problem, maybe.
Right.
Okay. And was this was back? I assume that were there phones in every room?
They had just started that my freshman year, so some people had them and some people didn't, because you had to sort of pay extra to get the phone and the cable thing. So some people had it. Some people still had, like, they had phones in their room, but they were, like, outside, like through an outside company, like through AT&T or something. But that was just my freshman year. And then after that, everybody had to have the school-approved phones and cable. It was just included in the thing. But I still remember people getting, like, using the payphone in the hall and getting calls on that, because this phone thing was still really new. Not using phones, but just having them. Everybody having the phones. And you had to dial a code to get out and all sort of stuff.
So you mentioned that you lived in the sorority house.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what is that like, living in a sorority house?
It's a lot of fun. It was kind of nice to, come in and have, at any given time, a bunch of people, like, sitting around the couch that you could talk to or hang out with, or, of course, there's the thing, people are dirty and whatever, leave their dishes in the sink or that sort of thing. But
how many girls were in the dorm? Not the dorm, the house.
We had like 12 or 13.
That's a lot.
Maybe but 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. Maybe I'm thinking there was more, but yeah, it was only about 9 people. But people would always, be there hanging out. I mean, you didn't have to live in the house to be there, so. So that was kind of nice. And it was nice having a house and, like, more room to spread out and not just being in a one little room. If you want to go in the living room or the back porch or you just had more space.
But sorority house isn't as crazy as a fraternity house, so to speak. I guess it's not.
Yeah.
Or would you say it is? I don't know.
No, I would say it's definitely not as crazy and, definitely not as dirty, and yeah, definitely not as crazy.
Do you guys have alcohol in the sorority house?
No, we could not.
No.
Technically. Don't want to get anybody in trouble, so just say no.
And why were you living in the house? Just did you mention that?
Well, it was by, like, what positions you had, and then you had, like, first, opportunity, and then if you didn't want to, then other people would. So it was just by the position that I had, and then my senior year I was president, I had to be in the house.
Oh, so you were president. I think that's what you used.
Yeah.
So what are the duties of a sorority president? I mean, what do you...
I mean, you have to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, and I mean, we have all these, you have to do all these reports and these, activities, and you had to, it sounds crazy, but there are so many things that you have to do. I mean, it's almost like running a business, because there are, besides, like, the reports and all that other things, we had to have so many social activities, so many non-social activities, so many, sorority approved, things, plus you've got to do initiation and, that sort of thing. I mean, there was just a lot of things to make sure that everybody was doing their jobs. And then, be a leader, and then attend, various meetings, and then things on campus, or, if you had all the presidents of sorority would have to, and fraternities would have to go to certain things. So it was really, it was a lot of work, but I think it really helped sort of prepare me for life later on, and being able to manage people and that sort of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. So I imagine that there were no visitation policies while you were at Randolph-Macon?
What do you mean?
Well, so back in the 70s, women, only in the women's dorm, women would have curfews, they'd have to go back or whatever. That was only at first, and they kind of did away with that. But also at the same time, they wouldn't allow men in the dorms in certain hours. So, obviously that wasn't the case since you lived in a co-ed dorm.
Right.
So it wouldn't be that way. But
I think it might have been that way in Mary Branch. That
so they might have
women. Like, it may have been that men weren't supposed to be in there or something. But again, nobody was... Let's say if there was some sort of policy, nobody was enforcing them.
Yeah, I'm really just telling you that there was a policy.
Okay.
So
There may have been one.
But, it just sounds, obviously... to you, like, how would you have handled that if there had been a visitation policy? Would you? I mean, obviously, would you have liked it?
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, what I'm trying to get at. It's just that, it even sounds ridiculous to you. Yeah, and that's only, 25 years later.
Right.
That, so it's kind of...
People are hanging out all the time. Like, you might be hanging out in dorms, guys and girls together, so it wasn't like if you had a visitation policy, then what?
The first year, people got kicked out for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is totally wild. Of course, there was no visitation policy, and the boys were,
Of course.
They didn't have a curfew.
Of course. Just the women.
Yeah. So switching kind of to academics now. So did you come in thinking that you would major in something?
Yeah, I was interested in the sociology department. I really thought I wanted to do something sort of criminal justice-like, and I know sociology, at the time it was just sociology, but, they had a lot of classes that were along those lines. So I sort of knew coming in that that's what I wanted to do, and that was my major. And then I took a lot of psychology classes also, because I also liked psychology. And I think it was my senior year when I looked at it or maybe it's your junior year, whenever you go to declare the major minor, I noticed that all I needed was like one more class and I could be a psychology major also. So I ended up being a double psychology, sociology major.
Yes. Do you remember who your advisor was?
Howard Davis, who passed away. He was the head of the political science department, as well as the head of the honors program. And I was in the honors program, so that's why he was my advisor, I think.
Yeah, and what was the honors program?
Do you don't still have the honors program?
We do.
Okay.
I just wanted you to
It was, I guess this, smaller group of people that were in this program, and your grades had to be a certain GPA, and you applied to get in before you got here, and then you had to maintain a GPA, and you got to take lots of really cool classes, usually in J term. I took one it's about fairy tales, and one all totally about the Canterbury Tales, and just you got to take really interesting classes, and so it was overall a good experience. And they did things too, like I remember we'd do a trip here, we went to the Barksdale Theater, things like that, and the Chenerys, who I don't know if they're still involved in the honors program or not, but they would sponsor a lot of things, and once a year you'd go to their house for a party, and so it was a good experience.
So do you, when you think about your academic experience, are there any people that stand out to you that maybe were mentors, or obviously your advisor, but maybe other than that?
Professor Fitzgerald, who also actually passed away while I was here. She was Charlottesville. Yeah, she was a sociology professor, and I just thought she was just really great teacher, and I felt like she was, I don't know, she just did a really good job, and she was very personable, and wanted to know what was going on with my life and that sort of thing. So I'd say she was one of the people, and actually the year, I guess my senior year, I was the first person to get the Charlotte Fitzgerald Honorary Sociology Award or whatever. And then Professor Claren, who's still here in psychology, was sort of somebody that I would talk to a lot, and who, I took a lot of her classes, and we're still in touch today, to this day.
So those were both female professors?
Yes.
So did you normally, I guess, feel closer to female professors than...
I guess I never really thought about it, but probably. I can't even think of any. I know I had plenty of male professors, but I can't think of any where I had more of a closer relationship with, like that.
I was just... didn't mean to judge or anything. I was
No, actually, Professor Gunther, who was only here, I think, for like a year or two, who taught some sociology classes, like evening classes, and I was also close with him, but then he was not here very long, so after that, I think.
So
there, I thought of a male professor.
I think it's just interesting because, maybe the women in the past, they didn't, there was B.J. Seymour, and then the French professors, I guess Hilliard came, but other than that, those were the female professors on campus, so I think it's great.
They didn't come to like 78, 79, so the first couple classes of women.
Oh, they didn't have any.
Well, was B.J. Seymour she was still a professor, and
just
she
one.
was, but that was, if you didn't take a religion class, then you didn't have a
Right.
female professor, and it's really interesting that, later on, it sounds like a lot of your professors were female.
They were. Especially in psychology. Most, if not all, were female at the time. I think maybe there was one male that I did not take. But yeah. Definitely a mix.
And you kept, your advisor was a political science advisor? You just kept him as your advisor? Or?
I think it was because of the honors program. I think that's why I was assigned to him.
Okay.
But because I was also in the pre-law society, and he was the head of the advisor for the pre-law society at the time, it also made sense.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, what did you do right after graduation?
Went to law school.
Okay. So, where did you go to law school?
Quinnipiac in Connecticut.
Oh, so you went back to Connecticut. Okay. I guess did you go through law school and then did you become a lawyer, I guess? Or maybe?
Yeah. What I looked into was I really wanted to join the FBI when I got out of college. And so I looked into that, and at the time, the qualifications were you either got a law degree or you worked in a related field, like a police officer or something, for 3 years. So I decided to go to law school, and that's when I went to law school, and then I got out of law school, and then I was like, oh, well, now I'm, a lawyer, I might as well practice law. And so that's kind of what I did, and I never got back to the FBI dream that I always had.
Did you ever practice in Connecticut, or did you come and take a bar here?
No, I literally graduated, and maybe 2 days later I packed up everything I had and moved back down here.
You did to Richmond?
To Richmond, yeah. I didn't have a job. I knew I needed to take the Virginia bar in order to get a job in Virginia. And I didn't ever really want to leave. It's just that I applied to a lot of law schools, and I got into some in Virginia, but Quinnipiac gave me a really good scholarship, and I just couldn't pass that up at the time. Plus, I lived at home and saved a lot of money that way, so it just worked out. But I always knew I was coming back.
So I guess you live in Richmond now?
I do.
And, what exactly do you do now?
I work for McGraw-Woods. It's a large law firm. And I do, I'm in the Discovery Counsel Services group, so I do mainly electronic discovery, which essentially, I can explain in like one sentence that say somebody sues the college for something. What they want is they want to get all the emails that maybe the professors were writing back and forth, or the administration was writing, or some paper files or their Word documents. Whatever. They want to get those documents because they think that there's somewhere in there is some sort of smoking gun. And so I just sort of manage that process of getting the documents, to both sides. So essentially, in a nutshell, that's what it is. There's a lot more to it, but.
That's a little bit like detective work, I guess. Is that you kind of, that whole process of kind of looking around for stuff. So
right.
It's something, I guess, a little bit where you wanted to go.
A little
into.
bit, really.
Yeah, I guess. So how have you stayed in contact with the college? You mentioned before that you're now an advisor to your old sorority.
I'm an advisor to the sorority. There's also a Greek alumni advisory board that meets with all the advisors, and Pepper heads that up, and we meet, I think, twice a quarter to talk about just the different issues that are going on with the fraternities and sororities and Greek life in general and that sort of thing, an update on what's going on, any rules that have changed, that sort of thing. So I attend those. I'm on the women's steering committee. I'm on the 90s steering committee. I don't know what else.
So do you come back for homecomings?
I have come back for most of them, yes. Do try to come for homecoming. Sometimes I come and watch the women's basketball games. My sister is the head athletic trainer here, and so she works a lot with the women's basketball, and so we come and watch them sometimes.
Did she graduate from Randolph-Macon?
She did not.
Oh.
But she's working here now, so. Heather Bauby.
Yeah, okay.
This is something we kind of skipped over, but I guess I still want to ask you about. Do you remember football games and everything while you were here as a student?
Oh, yeah. My freshman year, okay, so when I was in high school, I did stats for the basketball team. You know, which essentially meant I got to go around with the basketball team, the boys basketball team, and it was lots of fun. So when I got here, I wanted to get some sort of part-time job or something, and they had an opening for a statistician. So I went and, got the job. It's like a campus, whatever. But part of it was I had to also do the stats for the football games, which at the time I don't think I knew anything about. I mean, I watched football and that sort of thing, but I didn't know anything about football. So I remember going back to my room and telling my roommate, and she was like, "Oh," she's like, "You're gonna miss out on all the tailgates." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because I didn't know there was such a thing, and I just figured people went to the game and watched the game and that sort of thing. So apparently not. Everybody got all dressed up and went to the football games. I got dressed up, but I was up in the top box thing.
Cherry press box.
Yes, was up in the box, doing the stats, and I quickly learned football. I don't know how I was hired to do stats for a game I didn't know anything about, but so what I would do then is I would do that, and then at halftime I would go down to the tailgates and things and mingle with people, and then I'd go back up afterwards. So I did miss out sort of on, I don't want to say I missed out, but I missed out on some of the stuff my freshman year. And then I did basketball, which I always loved basketball, so that was easy for me. But and then I think my sophomore year, I said, I still want to do basketball, but I don't want to do football because I wanted to go to the tailgates and things. So I ended up not doing football and going to the games. And I mean, it really was. I mean, it's coming back now that we've got tailgates again.
But when did they stop that sometime?
The year after I graduated, they stopped. So
did they have, I know at one point before they stopped it totally, they put like the tailgates over maybe the physical plant parking lot. Was that not when you were here?
That wasn't when I was here. So when I was here, it was full on because the year I graduated is the year that Liddell retired. And so, not that, well, I think it is correlated. But anyway, so we had full on regular tailgating right by the football field so that you could tailgate and watch the game because the tailgates were right almost up to the field. I mean, nobody actually watched the game though at the time. But you were closer to everything. But then, I think a couple years later, after they stopped them, they tried to bring it back, and they brought it up by, which is no longer Pica. I don't remember what it is, up the fraternity house on the corner. I'm not sure what it is now, if it is a fraternity house or what it is.
Which corner?
The one by the railroad, yeah.
Physical plant.
Oh, so
Sigep.
Sigep.
Okay.
That's what it is.
So they tried to do tailgating there one year, and it really was a flop because it was so far away from the game. It didn't really make any sense. But when I was there, it was like really a big thing, and they had there was themes every time. And so after I was in the sorority, it was a big thing for the sororities to compete for first, second, third place of the theme. And so we did a lot of I mean, this stuff is really fresh in my mind for some reason, but like one time it was like some sort of sea or ocean thing, and I remember we got like a big plastic pool and brought it and put fish in it, and it was like a really elaborate thing. And one other time it was the Olympics, and Mandy and I baked cakes we baked 6 rings, like round cakes, and those were the rings, and we frosted them the different colors. And then one other time it was like a German theme. We did like a German chocolate cake and we had flags. I mean, it was really like a big thing to have these tailgate competitions. So I don't know why I remember that so clearly. But, and then it was a lot of just, hanging around and drinking and having a good time. So. And then after the games, there would be cocktail parties, like right after the games, that all the fraternities would have cocktail parties. So you'd go from the game right to whatever fraternity you wanted to, and they would have cocktails post game.
And then what?
and then you'd go back and like pass out for a couple hours because then the party started up at like 10 o'clock. So you had a little window in there to maybe eat some dinner and get some rest and then start up all over again.
Like a good day.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and you started at like 11 a.m. because that's when the tailgate started. So it was a long day, but it was fun.
Were alums around during all of this, or did they go home after the cocktail parties? Did you interact with them? Because of course there are lots of alums at tailgates.
I mean, I remember mostly just like homecoming. I mean, I guess there were other alums there at other games, but I think homecoming in Hampton-Sydney is when there were most alums were there. That I remember alums actually being there. So, but yeah, I mean, you'd hang out with them and then chat with them. And
There's a couple of questions that we like to end with. I mean, one is, you obviously knew you were coming up here for this oral history, and when you were thinking about your time at Randolph-Macon, of course our questions don't touch on everything, but is there anything that you were thinking about that, any memory or story or anything like that you'd like to say?
you know, every time I come here, which I feel like I come here a lot for things, I'm always thinking about, you know, how it was when I was here, and I know that you just cannot go back. It is not the same at all from when I was here. But it always just brings back just lots of, you know, mostly good, positive memories. You know, I feel like I'm very connected to the college, and I think that's why I have, you know, stayed involved and, you know, continue to do things to this day. I actually looked at some old pictures last night there was one I was trying to remember. It was because when I was here, we had the 25th anniversary, and I remember we had the tailgate float, and our float, it had to be themed on the 25th anniversary of women. And I went back and looked at it, and we had done like signs from like 60s, 70s, 80s, and we had, you know, people dressed up in the different decades and things. And I don't know, for some reason that's what I was thinking of. But I mean, I just think that I will always, you know, have really good memories of this place. So
sort of a little bit different, but in retrospect, is there any advice you would give an entering freshman when they're about to show up on campus like in a couple of weeks? Is there advice you would give them about that you wish you had followed yourself?
Enjoy every minute, because it goes so quickly, and then you're out into the real world, and you can never again sort of experience that, you know. And it's just everything, you know, go to your classes, but also have fun at the same time, and, you know, meet people and just do anything you can or everything you want to do, because this is the best time to do it, because you don't get to do that stuff anymore.
That's all that we have. So, I mean, that's it. But thanks for your time.